that if you look at it from a feminist standpoint, for many, many years women have been fighting to try and be equal to men, and recently we've started hearing more and more discussions saying, well, actually women should be treated equally, but they're not necessarily equal in the specific sense, and we're allowing discussions to say there are differences. And Inge just showed that in a very interesting way. There's also a very interesting article by Viva Wittenberg-Cox, which is called treating women like men is holding them back. So I'll put that in the readings after this session, and I definitely recommend have a look at it, because it also brings a very interesting approach similar to this one. Now we're going to attack a slightly different angle. So I'm going to pass over to Laurent and Katrien from the Resilience Institute. They've been looking at one of the things that might be holding women back is a difference in terms of resilience that they have come across in their studies concerning resilience, and then what you can do about it and what women can do about it. So I'd like to hand over to you to share your findings and tips.
Well, thank you very much for having us this afternoon. And we're happy actually to share some of the findings of the research that was made last year. And one of the area we actually dig into was women and resilience. And Katrien will lead you through that part. Maybe shortly introduce myself. I've been for about 20 years in the corporate world, in managing position in retail industry around the world. And about 5 years ago, I decided to change my career path and to ground the European branch of the Resilience Institute with Alexia Michiels, Belgian native as well. And a few months after, Katrien joined us. So maybe Katrien, you want to say a word as well on you?
Okay. As I explained already to some, I have a legal background. I was actually working for 5 years in the office of Jean-Luc Dehaene, the Prime Minister, specialized in Belgian constitutional law. I became a magistrate for 10 years in the Constitutional Court, not far away from here. And then my husband got the opportunity to go abroad for his company, and I said, yes, you know what, I'm a bit fed up with Belgian constitutional law, I'm going to do something different. So I started to studying to become a coach, and when we came back to Belgium after 7 years in Asia, actually where we all met more or less, I decided to join the Resilience Institute. Yeah. So there's an Asian connection.
Yes, we built that on a trade as well with Alexia and some of the other partners of the institute.
So, just for my comprehension, the Resilience Institute is something that you, because I don't know the Resilience Institute.
We actually grounded the European branch of the Resilience Institute.
There's another branch?
There is actually, that's what I'm going to tell you about just right now, that's fine. You just gave me the opportunity to tell you a little bit more on the institute that was grounded about 20 years ago, and the development model of the Resilience Institute is based on the medical practice of Sven Hansen, its founder, as a specialist in high performance and in optimization actually of performance for professionals as well. The Institute International is based in New Zealand because Sven has been working with the All Blacks for a number of years, and several branches are open around the world. Most of them are in the east side of this planet compared to here, for sure. It's quite interesting as we have a different map of the world depending on where you live. And We then opened the European branch about 5 years ago. So the idea around that resilience is that it's maybe I'll take that too. Oh, that's here. Okay. Maybe defining a little bit what resilience is. There's many ways actually of looking at resilience, and the definition that we have for us is first about balancing this ability to transform adversity into opportunity, robustness, and recovery skills. The second dimension around resilience is about courage. This ability to stay engaged and enthused in change and in challenges. It's this ability to develop optimism as well. The third dimension around resilience is about creativity. It's finding actually your own talents and seeking opportunities to develop these talents. Somewhere it's the ability to reach out for your full potential. And as we're talking gender equity here, we have all special talents that each of us has to develop, to search so it can flourish around them while actually developing them. The last one is about connection. Connection that's being connected with yourself, connected with the others, connected with the environment. Somewhere it's the ability to have a positive impact on others. A key point actually in developing resilience. In the complex world we live in, we cannot just rely on the cognitive dimension we engage into our day-to-day life. We need to use and mobilize all our resources. That is, the one from the body, the heart, the mind, and the spirit. And this is actually the integral view that we have at the Resilience Institute. So we could say that resilience is the ability to master the physiological stress, to really develop this vitality, to engage our emotions, we're back to them, to train that mind, and as well to put spirit into action. Resilience is also the ability to bring all these 5 elements together in an alignment and to keep them in an alignment so that we can actually transform any activity in which we engage in an experience in which we self-realize, or in some other words, in a performance. That's really the work on resilience. But before we get to do that, before we get to engage those dimensions, we have to realize that there are things that are hindering us from moving forward. And it is a darker side into our life. We call that the downward spiral. My Chinese friends would say that the fish stinks from the head down. And yes, it's that cognitive dimension, the head, that stops us actually from getting onto that flourishing path. The busyness, think over your days, number of activities, emails, meetings, things that you have to face. That busyness brings us into some state of confusion. And being victims of that confusion, we get just lost into infobesity, into immediacy, into ubiquity. At some stage, our brain just wanders. We disengage. And that's exactly what's happening at the second level when suddenly you're no longer here. We may not be aware, but in our awakened days, we're not more than 50% of the time in the present moment. Our minds keep on wandering the whole day through. So after you've unfortunately have not been able to use that mega dimension, which is the one really that we have enforced into the organization, then you start to bring some coping mechanism, you know? You withdraw from your environment. You start to detach from your environment because you're trying to cope with the pressure. You want to make some time for you so that you can actually attend to the task you're working on. And unfortunately, it starts to deplete your emotion. And as we were talking about emotion earlier on, emotion is really something extremely important for us because the radical of emotion is movere in Latin. It's moving. We move thanks to our emotion. This is the engine of our life. So as we start actually to deplete our emotion, unfortunately, very quickly, we start in fact to become vulnerable because we start to self-neglect ourselves. We start, especially something we'll be discussing again from the finding of the research, is we tend actually to neglect ourselves to cope with the responsibilities. And in this area, at that stage, as we're become vulnerable, we don't have the power anymore to move forward. So we are actually left with the last dimension, and we're using the body. And very quickly it becomes suffering. Just those headaches, those backaches, and so on are building up. And there, unfortunately, we are paving the way to some major issues. Yes, we're being threatened at that stage by burnouts. And no one's immune in this area. I'm not immune. You're not immune. No one in the organization is immune. Unfortunately, as we don't face the situation and we let things happen, we end up into that failure, the bottom part of the spiral. So it is critical actually to build up awareness about the existence of that downward spiral so that we can start to build up the recovery, the bouncing strategies, and those bouncing strategies, you need to address them as you are doing good, not at the time you're actually under this very high pressure, because you don't have the ability really to react at that stage. So first thing definitely in bouncing, become aware of that downward spiral, recognize yourself in that downward spiral, develop as many relevant bouncing strategies, and train. Train, like all the athletes would train before, they get to the event, because this is the only way for us to be able really to bounce strongly. And as you bounce, and as you come above that threshold, then you start to come onto that flourishing path. That wonderful path where as you develop calm and active presence, you are mastering the base of building up, these experiences where you're going to self-realize. You are moving on, energizing your body, using all the capabilities so that you are running on full batteries. Who can actually run without energy? No one does. So building up these full batteries will then enable you as well to engage into these emotions. And here, emotional intelligence will help you definitely create that resonance, have that very specific bounding and capability for you and for the others actually to keep on sustainable paths. As you maintain your attention, remember only 50% of our awakened time being in the present moment, as you are capable of actually catching your thoughts, verifying your thoughts, reframing your thoughts, then you can build up that optimism so that you can stay on that road and keep on moving, while eventually you will put that spirit into action, bringing meaning in what you're doing. As you create all these alignment together, you're then becoming capable of flourishing as a person and bringing all the other one as well into a full development. As you can see on these charts, what happens at the individual level as its collateral at the group level. So very important to recognize, for example, as you get into that indifference or self-neglect, you're not taking care enough of yourself, what happens into your organization? You build up some form of absenteeism, worst of all, presenteeism. As you're really, building this capability of self-knowledge and empathy we're talking about, then you create that resonant leadership and that culture of resonance. So this is a global model that we work on, and how do we assess the level of resilience of someone? We do that thanks to a diagnostic. So a diagnostic is a self-assessment. It's a tool that is available online. It takes a few minutes actually to get completed. And we assess about 60 different factors split in all the dimensions of this spiral. What we get from this diagnostic is how do we operate, first of all, on the upper side. So how much do we engage those 5 elements into our life? Body is being composed of the 2 first layers, the stress mastery, physiology, and the second layer, the body, the energy that we actually can create. And the 3 other ones are self-understanding there. The more you build up capabilities, the more you engage, the more you uplift your assets. This is the base of resilience. As I said, it's being hindered by the lower part, and in that lower part we will assess how you operate in such areas. So if you get a green dot on the top, you've got a strength, you want to build up onto it, you can move forward. If you got a green on the lower part, it means that you have a very good bouncing strategies. You have the ability, as you visit one of these levels, to bounce very easily. So you're not staying chronically in that space. As you get a yellow, you may improve in any of these. And as you may get actually a red on the top, it means that probably something is not being engaged into your practice every day in your activities. You would benefit actually on developing some of the competences around. As you may get actually a red onto the lower part, you're at risk. You absolutely need to start to work and develop some bouncing strategies so that when visiting that space, you'll have the ability really to bounce faster. You cannot avoid any of this level. Everybody every day visits several times those states. What is important is to make sure that you keep on fluctuating and that you stay at the highest level you can. In research that was made in 2014, at the end of 2014, we gathered together about 16,000 diagnostic. Those diagnostic, they were either pre or post program. Anytime we work with a group, a corporation, we start by making a pre-diagnostic so that everyone has its own and self-assessment, and we bring actually as well an aggregate result that we can share with everyone. It gives a level and better understanding of how the group is operating by itself. At the end of the program, they develop a testing and that's a post, and that's how they can measure the difference. So last thing I wanted to tell you on this is these 16,000 diagnostic were gathered between 2011 and 2014, 3 years of collected data. There's 13,000 people that participated. We have 13,000 pre, 3,000 post, and Katrien will tell us more now on the findings we had into this research.
Okay. So what did we do?
That's the side one.
Is this side one? So what did we do? We looked at the data, yeah, and here is where it becomes interesting for the difference between men and women. And we looked at the range of resilience ratio. What you saw in the previous slide, actually resilience ratio is the measurement of your assets versus your liabilities. Yeah? It gives you a ratio. Ideally, we say 3 to 1. Yeah, but most of the people have 2 to 1, and some people go lower. Yeah. no surprise, yeah, a high resilience ratio correlates with a high level of resilience. Yeah. Laurent explained to you the different dimensions. We wanted to know what is driving high resilience ratio. And you can see they correlate with trained mind, and especially with the factors, my decision is clear. I'm not confused when I'm taking decisions. Yeah. With spirit and action, I feel fulfilled. Yeah. I feel happy with what I do in my life. With energized body, which is a physical dimension, it's not only exercise, it's also sleep, it's also nutrition. And actually, I'm going to show you a graph. Energized body really strongly drives improvement in resilience ratio. And then stress mastery, of course. Also, no surprise, low resilience ratio really correlates with, you saw in the spiral, depression, distress, and withdrawal. And what were the factors? I feel sad and dejected was a factor that, of course, does not improve your resilience. I have low self-confidence. I'm irritable. I'm tired in the evening. I have no energy less. Yeah. So let's have a look at these. So look at the assets up there. And when you see the red line, which stands for energized body, you can actually see that the biggest change in the resilience ratio, the resilience increases as you energize your body. Trained mind, same thing. Yeah. Now have a look at engaged emotion. Yeah. It's also driving resilience, but not that strongly. Keep that in mind because we will come back to it. Liability score, you see really the opposite. The scores for depression decrease as resilience increase. Yeah. The same with withdrawal and with vulnerable. Okay, we wanted to dig a bit deeper, and we said, okay, if we see this, would there be a difference between men and women? Would men be more resilient than women, or the other way around, on the basis of our data? And what did we find? There we go back to our model. In general, looking at the general data, we did not find such a big difference. Yeah, it was more or less the same, but we could see that women were scoring not so good in the liabilities dimension. So we dig deeper, and we looked at the assets. And what did we see? And here we go again. Women score better on the engage emotion dimension. And I think it's a 6 or 7% that they score better. They also score a little bit better in spirit and action, but there the data are really it's not that a big difference. And also in energized body, men score better in trained mind. If we look at the liabilities, there are big differences. We could see that women score worse than men in confusion, in vulnerability, and Laurent has explained what it means, but there's a big difference in distress and in depression even. So we wanted to understand better, what does that mean? Let's first have a look at the main differences in assets. The main difference were impulse control, and I will show you in a minute to what it is linked, to which factors. Openness towards others, compassion, empathy, positivity, and self-awareness. Let's have a look. Can you see? Is it there? Okay. So, the biggest differences in the question responses. If you look at the index, so what is the index? Is the female score divided by the male score times 100. So if you would have 100, there would be no difference. If you would have an index score of 105, you have a difference of +5. Yeah? If you would have 80%, then you would have a negative difference of 20%. Yeah? But beware, some questions are asked in the reverse, and so you need to do the opposite exercise. But let's have a look at the first factor. I can be moody when things go badly. Yeah. So 25% or more men answered this question in the often and consistently category. I go beyond family and work to help others and the planet. A difference of 23%. More women answered this question in the often and consistently category. I'm well attuned to the emotions and feelings of others. Again, an emotion factor, where women answer more in the often and the consistently factor. 16% difference. I radiate positive feelings. Again, emotions. Yeah? So you can see, you get a picture of why women are scoring better in the dimension of engaged emotion, emotional intelligence. Yeah, and so we can go on. Look also at the difference in mind, yeah, where women score worse than men. Main difference in liability. There we were a bit shocked to find out that really the bouncing back capacities, the distress symptoms, there was a big difference, and you will see the percentages. Lack of self-confidence, confusion, comfort eating, and depression. Let's have a look. To the question, I feel stress in my stomach, in my chest, in my skin, and in my shoulders. Double of the women answered often or consistently. For me, this was shocking, to find out that 105% different compared to men. My self-confidence is low. It's an issue for 11 out of 100 women. It's only an issue for 6 out of 100 men. I feel confused about different decisions. Difference of 69%, according to our data. So I consume more sugar, fast food, so the comfort eating, a difference of 40%. I feel sad and dejected, a difference of 39%. And so we can go on. So there you see really the big differences in the liabilities. So what? Is there a difference in resilience between men and women? I think the answer is yes. Yeah. So according to our data, we can see that actually women are less moody, they are greater social contributors, they are much better attuned to the emotions of others, but they suffer more. Yeah? They do worse in depression, in distress symptoms, and in vulnerability dimensions. And remember, when I started explaining the data, that actually the correlation between the ratio and the resilience levels. So engaged emotions does not drive resilience that much. It's important, but it does not drive it that much. Trained mind, very important, and depression really is the opposite of resilience. So in summary, we have to conclude that actually where women have an advantage, where it's one of their strengths, it matters less for the overall resilience, where they score worse in a dimension that really has a huge impact on resilience ratios. Yeah. So what now? I think we should also see this and turn this as an opportunity. First of all, and without wanting to go into the debate of is it innate, is resilience innate, are some people more resilient than others? Answer is yes, but the science is clear. Resilience is 100% learnable, 100%. Yeah. And we see this from our program. So when we do the pre-diagnostic and we do the post after training, we see in general resilience ratios go up by 20%, and most of the dimensions go up. And also in the downward spiral, we see different dimensions. People become better in bouncing back. So it is learnable. Secondly, what do we see? It's actually that women are very good and fast learners. They even learn faster than men. They do better when we compare the difference between the pre and the post, and especially the risk factors. As we saw, I feel the stress in my body, I lack self-confidence, are really precisely benefit from a resilience program. So women can work on it, train themselves, help them. So in general, I think there is room to really work, even within a resilience program, on some specific points. We call it thinking skills because we saw how worry and rumination can tear, and now according to the data, women down. So it's important to have the capacity to train the mind. It's in the trained mind category. Self-confidence, stress mastery, and also sleep. These are elements that we recommend, and we do it when we do resilience workshops. It comes naturally in our workshops, and especially when we have an only women workshop. It's not that the content of a resilience program is so much different, but the focus is very different, and these things come out. And then when you are in a group of women, it's very easy to share those things and discuss about it and learn from each other.
Can you be a bit more detail about what are the thinking skills and the stress mastery?
Well, these go back to, let me go back. These go back to, I feel confused about difficult decisions. So actually, these are the 60 questions. These come out of the 60 questions that our diagnostic is based on, and where we have seen the differences between men and women. And each factor relates to a dimension. Yeah? And so this is where we see what drives resilience the most, and what has no or less impact on it. So thinking skills would really be not the cognitive, not the way you understand cognitive skills, but how can I make my decisions with confidence and clarity? Yeah. How can I less worry? What do I do about it? It's reframing that thinking, and there are many tools for training people to do this. Your patterns of thinking, and maybe Inge can confirm because I see you nodding. It's also what you do in coaching, but patterns of thinking can be trained. So to make sure that you do not go down in this downward spiral and you stop it. This is what we mean by thinking skills. When I talk about sleep, you see, look at the difference. I'm tired and fatigued by the end of the day, vulnerable. Women are more vulnerable or not doing as good as men in the vulnerability category. So it's something you need to focus on. And of course, this is our data. You need to bring into account the bigger context. And we all know that still nowadays, I think women have 2 jobs, men 1.5, I think. So the fact that women forget about themselves is of course linked to this. Yeah? But make them aware that actually, if you don't take care of yourself, it's like in an airplane, safety instructions, what do they say? First put on your mask and then put it on your child's face, right? This is the awareness you can train and you can create so that a woman becomes stronger and that the general resilience ratio goes up.
Yeah. I really find this very interesting, the difference between men and women, and particularly the fact that women score lower on these disabilities. And I noticed that you used the word depression, but what I haven't heard is the word burnout. Does your research also cover differences between men and women in that area?
No, because for us, in fact, is once you've reached the last level, it is either burnout or depression.
Okay.
And we're talking here definitely a failure, that is when you are in a clinical depression. The depressive state is something that we do visit from time to time, but doesn't affect our ability actually to operate. So and we don't make the difference between one and the other one. We say we're no longer capable. Okay. And that's the idea, is we cannot operate.
It's also the level where in general society tells you you're ill. Yeah? You have a problem where our approach is more, okay, you don't get there overnight. And actually, we all get there once. You can have a day where you say, really, this was not my day, but you can bounce back. The problem is if you keep there and you don't have the abilities anymore to go up and down, because our message is not that you should be at the top the whole time. It's impossible, and nobody does. But with resilience, you really learn first to become aware, okay, I feel tired, I should pay attention. And this is individual for everyone, and everyone will pick and choose, what can I do? What do I need right now to bounce again?
So do I understand correctly, so that depression isn't here in the clinical term, it's more just that you've reached a stage where you're ill, you're not functioning well anymore.
If you stay in the
regardless
state,
of what the,
if you stay in the state, it is clinical.
Yes.
If it's chronic, any of these states, if it's chronic, then it's become actually disabling.
Yeah.
So that's really the idea of making the people become aware of the existence. This is part of their life, but you know, where am I? Am I constantly there? And I guess very few people are actually thinking that they are getting in distress just because they have a headache. But the reality is that it is some dysfunction which is happening. It repeats, and some of us, I've done that for many years, we just take aspirin every day because it's a good enabler. Unfortunately, that's very dangerous.
Thank you.
Yeah, just one quick question. This tool that you mentioned, is this something available to individuals?
Which, the diagnostic?
Yeah, the diagnostic tool.
So the diagnostic is only being offered in programs that we make because although it's interesting to see yourself and to self-evaluate, but it has no interest if you cannot do anything with it.
Yeah.
So it's very important that people.
So usually what we do when we do a program is that people do this diagnostic. We have no access to the individual diagnostic, so it's really confidential. But we can aggregate results of the team. And there it becomes interesting because then people can come with their own diagnostic, and usually people are very open. When you're in a small group, they can compare themselves to the team results, and they can share. They can share, okay, why do we have so much confusion in our team? And what is our strength as a team? What can we build on? What can we do differently? And there it becomes interesting. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just thinking beyond this sort of signing up for a resilience program, what would your I'd say takeaways be based on these differences in the fact that maybe women are less resilient and men score more high on the liability side, or maybe more vulnerable. What do we need to take into account in our gender equality plans to make sure that we're providing the support to ensure this doesn't happen?
I think for me, and Laurent, let you answer as well. For me, I think as a company, it's very important to be aware of those differences and really work for a culture where you have those bouncing back skills. Because we often find and that these things are not so, there's still a bit of a taboo. They're not so easily discussed. And I think if you already start in a company with a little bit of openness about these issues, and then really building that culture where those things can be addressed. Organize your meetings differently. Do a standing meeting so that people will do it with more concentration. Your meetings will become shorter. There are very easy things that you can already do without having to go through a program. But for me, it's mainly building that culture where you get an awareness for those kind of things, and you give people the openness and the ability to build up the bouncing skills. Laurent, you want to?
I'm just wondering, Katrien, what you were thinking about. For instance, one of the things that I recommend companies to do is to give women peer groups. So you promote a woman, she comes in a new position, she's the leader of a team, she's probably the only woman, and they found in research in the Netherlands that it really works for women to give them a peer group. And it works because men tend to talk about their issues at home. They don't want to lose face in the company, so they're not going to talk about this, to their colleagues. Women tend to talk about these things with their colleagues, and then they're seen as not having confidence. They lose their leadership position. You can't do that. So they gave female head teachers peer groups of head teachers where they can talk about their issues. And that then gives women a lot of inspiration and self-confidence. So it's sort of addressing resilience, like where do women find that?
And I think
but in a corporate way. Almost.
Yeah, in a corporate. And I think what you said about giving the way you give feedback, the appraisals once per year is probably not what you want. If as you see the facts that women have more issues with my self-confidence as well. So maybe our systems of appraisal need to be questioned. Maybe we need to give feedback in a different way, and that would suit women much better. You know, these are all things that there's a lot you can do based on the data that, of course, we found within, and our diagnostic is, of course, built to test resilience. So, but I was very charmed also by what you said about the appraisals, and again, more and more companies throw away the yearly appraisal.